We'll call the meeting to order at 7:02. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America,
to the republic which stands
one
nation, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice
for all.
for all.
Okay. Correspondence. Terry?
Sure. The first one from a resident to Sergeant Tebow. The resident's daughter was involved in a motor vehicle accident while driving on a learner's permit. She wanted to express her appreciation for Sergeant Tebow's kind, understanding, and caring demeanor. Next is from a student to PFC Cushman. Thank you for your service and courage. The last one is from a resident to PFC Gray. A resident had to call 911 and have her husband transported to the hospital. PFC Gray was kind, caring, and compassionate. The resident was very grateful for his service. That's the end of the letters.
Thank you.
Well done.
Before we do the approval of minutes, I'd like to get the business of the new officer, or the potential new officer, moved up from new business B, or excuse me, where is it?
Hey,
New business A to, so we don't have to delay him, have him sit through this other stuff before we get to it. Is there a motion for that effect?
Motion to approve.
Okay, second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. So, Chief, you want to give us the rundown on their potential hire?
Yes, I will. Yes. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Sean Crowley. Sean is my recommendation to this board for a new police officer here in Simsbury. Sean is currently a police officer with the Torrington Police Department, where he has been since December of 2017. While employed by the Torrington Police, Sean completed the Police Academy field training program and has been assigned to the Patrol Division. During his time, he has participated in the Special Olympics Torch Run, a week-long problem-solving detail in one of the city parks, and he has been recognized several times by his supervisors and the command staff for commendable work. Prior to becoming a police officer in Torrington, Sean held he held customer service and laborer positions such as a public safety officer and loss prevention officer at Best Buy and at Lake Compounds. He has attained an associate's degree in criminal justice from Texas Community College. This department completed a thorough background. His coworkers, his supervisors, and friends describe him as extremely reliable, a calm presence during stressful time, and adaptable. His performance in Torrington reveals an amiable, high-capable, strong performer with self-control and good judgment. In addition, I have found Sean to be polite, enthusiastic, one who is very personable, enjoys the conversations, and communicates very well. He has expressed a desire to solve problems and to be a contributing member of this community. I introduce you all to Sean Crowley. It's my request that he be approved for hiring effective January 2nd of 2021.
Are there any commissioners that have any questions for? Sounds like a fine Irishman.
Is there any other kind?
Hey, Sean, what brings you to Simsbury?
I currently live in Simsbury. I moved here with my girlfriend about 2 years ago, and absolutely fell in love with the town. And actually used to work with Officer Donalski. And when I saw that you guys have opened up applications on Police app, I reached out to him. I said, how do you like it? And he had nothing but great things to say. There's another officer that works for Torrington PD who lives in Simsbury, and, she tells me all the time, or he'll see Kyle and he'll say, he'll talk very highly of work for Simsbury PD. And I think that working for, the town that you currently live in is something that seems to be going by the wayside. And I think it's one of the, the best ways to, community police, which is something that's the reason why I wanted to do this job. So I thought, what better of a town to do it for than Simsbury, the town that I fell in love in. I grew up in Bristol, and coming down here to this area, it's, it's a world's different, everyone's so kind. So I thought, what better of a place.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Sean, this is Mike Long. I'm just curious, do you have any other long-term aspirations that you intend to perhaps go back for a bachelor's degree or a master's degree at all, or what might your plans be for the future?
Absolutely. That's one thing that I still continue trying to determine what I would want to do for a bachelor's degree. Continue my education. I think that's one of the most important things. My dad always strived for that. And I think that the only thing that, as of right now, I just want to try to, what would be the best, degree I could pursue long term that, will help me with furthering my career. I have, goals of, career aspirations of, detective, or even a field training officer, because my love for, investigative work. I think something that's, one of the things I fell in love with, early on in this job. And then, I also like being able to train people. So finding, a good mix between a degree that can, further my career and then, help me, day-to-day life. It's one of those things I tackle with, and, I like to reach out to people, my father, who just completed his master's, people I work with, just to try to see what would be the most ideal. As of right now, I'm still trying to, figure it out, but that's one of those things that's, very, very high on my priority list to get something to get done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, Jana?
No, I'm good.
Travis?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, all right.
I've got another one, Ned, if I may.
Sure.
John, if you were sitting in one of our seats right now, is there anything that you think you'd like to know about you that we don't know about so far?
Oh man, that's tough. I deeply care about this job, so much so where I like to tell people, I think policing's, you see a lot of negativity on the news, and that's one of the things that I strive very much about. People will come up to me and they'll ask me about current situations, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I think, the best thing is just, transparency. A lot of people don't know or personally know police officers. So whenever people, approach me or I approach them and they have questions, I like to be able to answer them. I think that's one of the biggest things is, just being able to have a dialogue with people who may or may not agree with, how they view police. But I think that's the best way is, instead of saying, instead of having that us versus them mentality, just try to, open up, try to break down barriers to, why people feel the way they do. Maybe they had one bad interaction with an officer early on in their life or their family member. So I thought, it was always in my mind, even if someone has this, bad perception of police, at least they can look back and say, but that one officer I talked to, Officer Crowley, he was a good guy. He was, one of those guys I like talking to. So I think that's one of the things that I do like to discuss with whether it's friends, family, just being open with people and talking about the job, I think that's just the way we're going to get through the whole, everything that's going on in the media, the negativity towards policing. I think that's just, the best part. And, and that's why community policing has always been one of those main goals of mine, to be that, that neighborhood cop where people can talk to you, they can figure out, hey, what's going on, how's the job going, and just be open with them. I think it seems to be kind of gone by the wayside a lot. I think that's the best way to come bring it back around where, have a community that truly supports police.
Rings my bell. Thank you.
I assume that you know that there's not going to be a lot of action in town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a problem?
Not at all.
Okay. All righty. Well, we happen to be a little strong on the protect and serve, but especially the serve part.
Absolutely.
You'll probably spend more time helping people get their car started than chasing them with a gun.
Absolutely.
But as long as that works for you, it'll work for us.
100%. As long, like you said, the serve, people will expect, when they call the police that they're gonna be there to help them, no matter how big or small the issue might be. If it's, going to the grocery store or starting someone's car, I think that's what, policing ought to be. And I think that, there needs to be more of that.
Okay. Is there any other questions from any of the members?
None from Terry. They were asked.
Okay. Well, hearing now, then, is someone interested in making a motion?
Oh, we're gonna discuss this, back in the right spot on the agenda where it talks about the new officer. Have you discussed that before we had a vote? Or whatever you said, okay?
You mean the new officers for next year or?
No. Business, item 8A.
Yes.
We came out of turn to have the interview so that Officer Crowley could get back to his life, but are we going to discuss the situation before we vote on it, or which we normally do?
If you'd like to discuss it, I'm pleased for you to do that.
Then,
Hmm?
when we get to item 8A.
Fine. Well, okay. Super. Okay. Well, thank you for that, commissioners. We'll go back to the regular. Or do you want to finish up A before we go back to the regular?
No, I think we'll vote at that time. I think he can go back there, whatever he's doing now, and we'll finish our meeting in due course, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sean.
And thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, everyone.
Sean, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sean.
All righty. The next item is the approval of the minutes for the meeting of October 14. Are there any additions, corrections, changes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. Thanks,
Okay.
John.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Uh,
Okay.
Aye.
All right.
The motion passed. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the public audience. We haven't no one signed up for public audience, so I
That's
guess
correct, sir.
we're not going to have any. Old business. The Memorandum of Understanding. Michael, you were going to check with everyone for signatures the last time I heard.
As of this afternoon, it had yet to be signed by the first selectman,
Okay.
so we do not have a fully executed MOU yet.
Now, have you had any conversation with him with his intentions to sign it or?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. He said it'd be momentarily.
Okay, all right. We won't go any further with that one. Okay. The chairman's report. This could be a short,
Oh, wait. Look. Old business, the meeting schedule for 2021.
oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I just have a quick question.
Okay,
So we moved our December meeting to December 6th, so we would have time to discuss the budget before the budget meeting. We are not going to schedule the following Monday unless we need it, correct?
it's my understanding, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
See how we get along with this one
Okay.
tonight. Okay, the next one was the chairman's report. I don't know, this is more an announcement than a report. My term is up at the end of December. However, I'm under contract to sell my house and or residence, and to do that on the 23rd, which means on the 23rd I will no longer be a Simsbury resident. So I will be no longer a member of the police commission or the chairman.
If the closing occurs.
Pardon?
If the closing occurs.
If the closing occurs, yes. It's we're waiting for some mortgage company to decide my future
There you go.
as far as that goes. So not having any, there won't be any meetings then until January. So you folks will have to figure out what you'll be able to do with me not being here, which I'm sure will make you all pleasant, very pleasant occurrence for all of you. So,
Hallelujah.
yeah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
So if we could have Chelsea put that on the schedule for the January meeting as to what you're going to do about a chairman for the rest of January, because we normally have the elections for the chairman and the clerk at the January meeting. So for the next term. So that's my report. Chief, do you have anything to report?
I do, yes. Thank you, sir. You're still in the selection process to fill 3 patrol officer vacancies. So we've interviewed several, and 2 right now are in the background process. So we're hoping to make some movement on those by the next meeting. Same thing with the process to fill the 1 dispatcher vacancy. So we're still in the process of that as well. The competitive lieutenant promotional examination is scheduled for December 17th, and I plan to announce the competitive sergeant process within the next 2 weeks as well. As far as other personnel.
Hey, Chief, sorry to,
Sure.
so back to the hiring piece.
Yes,
So 3 patrol officers that you're attempting to hire, is
Yes.
one of those vacancies potentially filled by Sean, or are we talking about that's a separate issue?
correct. 3 additional ones. That's not, yeah. So right now there's 4. If Sean is approved, then there will be 3
Yeah, okay, and the dispatch.
in the dispatcher. Yes.
Got
And
it.
then for the budget next year, you have 3 more officers.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So COVID has impacted, the health of several of our employees. I just wanted to sort of bring the commission up to speed on, or the board up to speed on this. Since October 1, we've had 2 department members who have tested positive for COVID-19. We have had 5 members take leave due to symptoms, and then 3 members who were quarantined due to contact tracing. So, over the course of 2 months, we've had several absences. I can, report that everybody is in good health and recovering, except for 1 member who has been hospitalized and is hopefully on the recovery path right now. Um, In addition to that, I just wanted to let you know that we had a food drive for the Simsbury Food Closet or the pantry through social services. That was on November 13th. And I wanted to have a special thank you out there to the Simsbury PD supporters on Facebook who were really the driving factor to our collection on that day. And then upcoming this week, December 10th and 11th, Thursday and Friday, is our annual Stuffer Cruiser at Necker's Toy Store at 1591 Hot Meadow Street from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So that's this Thursday and Friday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., where anybody can donate a unused or wrapped toy or gift cards. The donations will go to the Salvation Army. And it has been posted on our Facebook page at Simsbury CT Police Department. And that's all I have for my report, sir, besides the consolidated monthly reports.
Thank you. Any comments on the consolidated monthly reports? Has everybody had time to review them? And is there any additions, corrections, deletions, anything you'd like clarified?
I'd like to go back for just a second to the question that Travis asked a little earlier. Just to be sure that I've got this straight in my mind. We are, from this point forward, looking for 6 police officers through the end of the next fiscal year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so currently right now we are down 4. If Sean is approved, we'll be down 3. The budget that has been before you with the request for additional personnel is an additional 3 officers and a civilian accreditation specialist. So Mr. Long, you are correct. As of this point, if Sean was approved, we would be looking for filling 6 more positions, sworn positions.
And that's pending also the approval of the budget by the Board of Selectmen, right?
That's correct.
And Chief, what will that then, if you fill those 6 and your dispatcher, so fully staffed, what would our officer to citizen ratio then go? Where are we at and where are we attempting to go to?
Yeah, I believe that will take us at 1.6, around 1.65. It will not take us to the 1.8, which is the state and regional average.
Okay.
Yep. It will get us up into our the average of our immediate region.
Yeah, great. And is there population growth in Simsbury that's also driving the growth of the force?
Yeah, so we will find out when the new census comes out, because there are projections, and for some reason the projections have been lower each year, and then they readjust and they're actually higher. So there has been some growth. I forget what the percentage is, but there is a grand list growth. So there's physical development as well as population development. What's also driving our need for more officers is the cases become more and more complex. So a general fraud investigation 10 years ago, 20 years ago is very different than a fraud investigation now, because it involves technology. It involves things that happen well beyond the town of Simsbury. There's so much connectivity throughout our lives now that these investigations take considerable more time than they used to in the past.
Are you anticipating more people in the Detective Bureau when you get the full complement?
So I'm expecting that we'll be able to staff it at the level where we have wanted to staff it at, with 3 detectives and a detective sergeant. We have not been able to have that 3rd detective in there for many years now, just due to staffing. Even when we were up to, a full complement of 38 at one time or 36 at one time, just with, injuries and with leave and this, that, we just have not been able to for several years. So I expect to keep it at 3 and with a detective sergeant, and then we will, we'll assess to see where we are. One of the driving factors, or the priorities, I should say, is to get the traffic officer back out there and consider the need for a second traffic officer on a different shift.
Okay, thank you.
Has Kalia weighed in the last year or two on our situation with staffing versus, the area average or, state or national average? Or have they kind of let that issue stay dormant?
They've let it stay dormant. They don't often go into that. They leave that up to the departments.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Next business would be the new officer selection recommendation for Sean Crowley. I guess here we would entertain a motion to approve Sean Crowley or to have, and after that motion, have some discussion. Would someone like to?
I'd certainly make that motion. I think he sounds like an outstanding candidate, and I think he's been well vetted by the chief, and so I would recommend his hiring, and I would vote for it.
Okay, is there a second?
Terry will second that.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Pro or con?
Yeah, pro. I like the guy comes from a police background. Seems like for the last 3 years, we're getting reports that he's a proven performer and, is a resident of Simsbury now. So he is certainly familiar with the town and probably the composition of our force and what it takes to be an officer here in Simsbury to excel. So based on those factors, I think he fits a good candidate model.
I was wondering how the new deputy chief felt about the hire. Chris?
I would agree. I think he's going to be a welcome addition to the force. He's going to bring some excellent experience to the agency, and I would look forward to working with him. He seems like a top-notch performer.
Super. Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor of?
I'm sorry to interrupt there, Chief. It seemed like you were about to jump in there.
Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want me to take an opportunity just to explain real briefly the process that somebody goes through. I don't think many people have really experienced that since we're live now, and maybe
Yes.
some members aren't familiar with that.
Good idea.
Okay, so just real briefly, for an officer applies to the department, and then the first process they go through is an oral board, a traditional oral board interview. We have 3 members from our department. It's usually a diverse among gender and rank. And once a person goes through that, if they have done well and should move on, then they make a recommendation to move on, and we take a look at their score that they have generated. And if they're recommended to move on, then they move on to a command staff interview. And at that point, we have traditionally had lieutenants sit down and interview them. And they're looking at that point for technical skills, personality traits, knowledge, skills, and abilities, but as well as a fit. They're an integral part of the fit process here. If the command staff then recommends them to move forward, the candidate is then moved over to our detective division, where the detective sergeant will ask them to fill out a very long packet about their employment history, their residential history, a bunch of questions, and then sit down and go over that. And that begins then the background process, which includes a check of references, a financial check, a motor vehicle check, a criminal history check, a check with employers, prior employment, a visit to the home, real thorough. and in this particular case, a visit to the Torrington Police Department. And then at that point, if the person successfully passes, they move on to a psychological, a polygraph, and a medical test. If they have completed all of those after the conditional offer of employment, then there's usually several interviews that involve the chief and then the command staff again, at which point we really dive into a good fit here. They're offered opportunities to do ride-alongs, to speak with anybody in this department to figure out if this is a good place for them. They'll be in regular communication with the lieutenants, with the detective sergeant, and then after all that, then the candidate comes before you as our preferred candidate.
Any questions on the procedures?
Thanks, Chief, for going through that again for us. I appreciate it. And just one more comment on the applicant. I think that he, Mr. Chairman, you and I have spent over 20 years here trying to shift an attitude of a country department into one that really focuses on being a community policing organization that is in the community, is active. And I think that Sean, fit that perfectly well. And so I think it's the type of person we've been looking for all along here. So I'm very excited about it. Actually.
Yeah. And living in town, it might be, as his family grows, someone that would have children in Little League and things like that. It in the school system, it just makes him a citizen of the town as well as being an employee. And it's a good idea, and I think he's a good fit.
Call the question.
Pardon?
Call the question.
Call the question. Okay. All in favor of Sean being hired?
Aye.
All right.
And the opposed? Hearing none, the chief, you can tell him, sign him up. Okay?
Will do, sir. I've invited him back to the meeting here, and we'll see if he's able to join.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next item is the budget for 2022. You have any remarks you'd like to make, Chief, as the procedures, or
Yes.
anything you'd like to point out to us that makes this different from past budgets, or the present budget, I should say?
Yep. So we took a look at the police budget and the dispatch budget proposals last month, and there were very few changes that I made in this proposal from last month. We were able to fine tune some numbers. In that time period, the dispatch union settled a contract with the town, so there was a slight increase in a couple items there for the dispatch budget. All in all, the two budgets are very, very similar to what they looked like a month ago. Did a little readjusting of there is a $600 addition to a dispatch to cover an uninterrupted power supply to be able to run the dispatch equipment that comes to an end March of next year. So we'll need to cover about 3 or 4 months of that. So otherwise, those two budgets are basically the same. If there are no questions about those two, I could move on to the 3 remaining budgets that were included for this month, which are new to the commission for this year.
Any questions on the dispatcher budget? Why don't you move on, Chief?
Okay. Right, so I submitted the animal control officer budget, and as you can see on there are very little changes, and the only changes are the anticipated step increases in there. So that's a very small change to the animal control officer budget. We are currently looking at, there is a section there called fees paid to the state. And it's kind of an odd thing. So it's, the town collects fees for dog licenses and then sends most of it back to the state. And that's what that is. So it's really not a budgeted item. It's really sort of a revenue item. So we're working with finance to see if we want to sort of straighten that up in the budget, if that belongs somewhere else besides an actual budget. So that'll be in the future if we want to continue to move forward with this. I know it's a low priority for them. This item has been in the budget for many years.
So you're anticipating the income will be about 6,000 and the outgoing will be about 6,000 for that item?
Yeah. It's usually a wash.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they may or may not decide to change that. It's sort of just a cleanup. If they do anything, they would end up taking that 6,000 out of there, and it would just be, go somewhere else because the revenue comes in and then that money goes out. So it's really kind of an odd setup.
Super.
Next.
Any other questions on the animal control budget?
Not from Terry.
Okay. So next, Chief.
So the next one, we can go over the capital requests.
Okay.
And so there'll be a request for 2 admin vehicles. And as you recall, this past fall, the way we purchase our administrative vehicles, our non-marked patrol cars, has changed. So there used to be a fund for that, and now there isn't. So each year we will anticipate putting a request in to have 2 administrative vehicles replaced. So that's the estimated cost for replacement of those 2 vehicles, and that will come out of the private duty fund, or at least anticipated to come out of the private duty fund. And then 2 new variable message signs. And these variable message signs are the large signs that are on trailers that you'll see throughout town that may give you warnings that school is coming back in session or to buckle up. They're used during emergencies in 2011 and 2012 during our storms. One in particular, when we had a shelter, we used those. The signs are getting old, the trailers are getting old. What's very interesting about these 2 signs is that they are dual purpose. They have a large LED sign on there that we can change, but in addition, they're also a radar sign. So they can tell people how fast they're going, and they can tell them to slow down or provide a smiley face of the sort to let them know that they're within the corrected speed. We plan on sort of retiring one of the trailers because they're significantly old, and the other one we will keep. We sort of put a hybrid together of parts, so we'll keep it as a third spare. But I think these 2 message signs will be very valuable to us. And the other item that's in there is not anything that needs to be budgeted this year, but it's the radio system contract. So in years past, we had the radio system contract or the maintenance fee in our regular police budget. Over the years, we have separated the police and the dispatch budgets. And now we're looking at a brand new public safety radio system with a significantly more costly maintenance service contract. So it went from our current system of about $7,000 to the new system where the first year there's no fee. The second year there's just over 17,000, and then it bumps up to about 34,000. So we won't need to budget for that for this fiscal year of 22. It will be the following year, but I put it in there sort of as a placeholder for us.
Is this the system that we would share with other departments in the town? Would the cost be split amongst them?
So no, and that's why I felt it was more appropriate in the civil preparedness or emergency management fund.
Okay.
Or budget, because this has traditionally been, as far as I know, just a budget that's been used for emergency preparedness in general, and not just us. In the past, we have coordinated with either the fire district or the fire marshal's office, seeing if there was anything that we needed in a true large scale emergency. Do we need some equipment? Do we need this? And our I'm sorry, you know what? Take that back. I was looking at the other one. That radio system contract is in the emergency management. I apologize. So I'm glad that says zeros in there because we're not looking for that in the capital request. It was carried over to the other one.
Nice.
So if there's any questions about the capital request, we can move on.
Hey, Chief, I don't want to drag the meeting out too long here, but I would like to circle back to vehicles and your thoughts on, I see we increased patrol hours from 19 to 20 by, 11,000 to date here. Do what, just in general, what are your thoughts on our patrol hours? Do we have it about right? Are we continue to increase as we bring on additional officers? Like what are your generic thoughts, just so for future planning reference?
Sure. So for patrol hours or overtime, what do you, I want to be on the same page.
Like in part of the report here, I see patrol hours by vehicle, and it's a breakdown, car 10 or the K9 vehicle is out doing patrol hours. I'm not concerned about the overtime or budget necessarily. I'm concerned about effectiveness of the force.
Sure. So that's the consolidated monthly report I think you're looking at?
That's correct.
Yeah. So those are miles patrolled. If we're looking at the same area.
And Chief, I wasn't even interested so much in the specifics, like by breakdown of vehicle. I'm just trying to get a generic sense in your mind. Are we out there, as a force? Are we out there enough engaging with our vehicles and our presence, that sort of thing?
Yep.
And, yeah.
So I would like to do sort of a workforce analysis on this because the range is anywhere from, you're looking for 40 to 60% of patrol time to be really what's adequate. And the patrol time is that sort of free time where somebody is not actually investigating something or handling a call for somebody. It's that time where the cruisers are out and driving around and looking for hazards, looking to initiate activity, looking to monitor traffic and things like that. So I would like to be able to do a study at some point to figure out what our percentage is. If we take a look at where we are right now, I would say we're doing okay. One of the reasons why I want to put that traffic officer back in is because a lot of our patrol officers, I would say sort of outside of the pandemic, have not had as much opportunity as we would like for them to do general traffic enforcement. So I think our numbers are looking okay. They would be better if we were at that 42 that we're looking for. And most of our force is out there in the town as opposed to inside. I don't know if that answers any of your.
No, it does. What I was hoping not to get is it's woefully inadequate or that sort of thing. And I'm glad to hear that you think, without a detailed study into it, that you feel like essentially we get it about right.
Yeah, we do. So we're not receiving any complaints that it took an excessive amount of time for our officers to respond to emergencies or non-emergencies. We are monitoring our response times, and that seems to be good. We know that the officers are out there and available for things because they're documenting patrol checks. They're documenting that they're checking different locations. So we're doing good on that mark.
But haven't we cut back a little bit on traffic stops to the more flagrant ones because of the virus and the interaction with people?
We have. So the number of traffic stops did go down significantly with the pandemic, and they're starting to slowly come back up. If we look at October's numbers, they're not too far off from each other, from this October this year and October last year.
Super. Okay.
But with the increase, of the COVID-19 cases, I would expect that to sort of drop a little bit as well. So sorry for the confusion with the capital requests. It's just those two items in there, the admin vehicle replacement and the 2 variable message signs.
Did we ask for the signs last year?
We did ask for 1 sign. Yep. And it was bumped out in the capital to this current year.
So did we do emergency management?
Partially.
When I stepped out of the room, I apologize.
No. I'll pick it up from here. So in the emergency management, this is the one that I was talking about where we have coordinated in the past with others on, a true sort of mass emergency. So we fund the Everbridge emergency notification system in here. That's our townwide system for less than true emergencies, for notification of personnel, for the emergency operations center and things like that. It allows us to communicate with the public for non-emergencies, but things that are timely. There's another section in there for EOC needs, the emergency operations center needs, or the variable message sign repairs. So that's a small nominal amount in there. That's the same number that has been in there for many years. We went up about $100 because of the Everbridge notification increase. But this is where the future radio system contract will lie, in the emergency management fund. And again, we don't need to budget for that in fiscal year 22. There's been a delay in our radio system installation. They're projecting potentially July of this year. We're pushing as much as we possibly can to get this done as soon as possible. We'll still be working on that. But the first service contract year would be in fiscal year 23, and that's $17,000. So we just sort of put a placeholder there for that.
Chief, with this as the subject, when was the last time we did a townwide mass casualty incident?
Lieutenant Sheen, do you recall, was it 2018?
I think I was still with the ambulance with the last one, so it's been a while.
Yeah, I think the last one was the one they did the large scale down at
Hartford?
The insurance?
Hartford. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So it's been a number of years. Okay.
Yep.
There a suggestion there, Terry? Something to think about?
What's that, Mike?
A suggestion there or something to think about?
Well, I was triggered by the radio system, and during those MCIs, that's the one thing that's the biggest concern, is everybody being able to talk to each other.
All right. All right. Well, that's a good vote.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for the budgets, unless there are any questions about that. And just wanted to bring to your attention that Sean Crowley has been able to rejoin us.
Welcome back, Sean.
Good to be back.
Hey. Hey.
Well, congratulations. You've been approved to be a member of the Simsbury Police Department.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor.
Well, thank you. Ordinarily, we'd all be standing up and shaking your hand and having you volunteer to buy the beer, but under circumstances, we won't be able to do that.
Oh, next time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Congratulations, John.
Thank you
Congrats,
very
Sean.
much. Thank you. Thank you.
Unanimous and enthusiastic. Welcome.
Absolutely.
All righty. So
Ali.
are you looking for us to endorse the budget this evening, Chief?
Yes, I am. If everybody is comfortable with it, I am looking for an endorsement this evening, because we do have to submit this the first week of January as a preliminary submittal.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion that we endorse this?
And
Budget.
Mr. Chairman, before we hit that, just one question for you. Were we given as a board, given any prior guidance on where the budget should be with respect to the size of the budget or anything of that nature? Like, I'm asking to know if what we're going to propose is contentious or if it's in the mark. That's all.
So the only thing that I can speak about with that is at the tri-board meeting, which was last week, I believe the Board of Finance was looking for a a 1.5% increase. Looking at a 1.5% increase in the budget would ultimately be cuts, significant cuts. So it is not my recommendation that we submit that at this point.
If I may, Chief, Travis, I spent 10 years on the Board of Finance and sort of got into the habit with the group of putting together a target such as you suggest here. But we do it not by department and not by unit, but by the town budget, the Board of Education budget. And we look at basically ability to pay and judge that through bankruptcies in town, through foreclosures in town, through statistics in the Connecticut reporting of wages and what's happened year upon year over the past 2 or 3 years and what's forecast the year coming up. And we try to do a number that's what we can afford to pay. How that gets divvied up and whacked around by the large unit, the town, is up to the town and the Board of Selectmen. And so, we will make our pitch, if you will, by the submission of this, by the charter and also by the MOU, which I expect is now signed. We do have we're unique in being a commission that will personally bring our budget to the Board of Selectmen and argue on its behalf, as opposed to allowing staff to do that. And then they make the decision. The town manager will then put together the Board of Selectmen's recommendations for each area, and that's how the overall budget will be determined. That's submitted for a referendum to the voters next April. So while there is a number that's a target, it's not the police department target, it's the town target. And so, whether that makes a difference or not, it's up to the selectmen, but generally it does. They will look at what we ask and they'll try to fit the whole town's financial scheme into that recommendation.
Good insights. I appreciate it. I guess my thought was just, if we're coming in with a budget that we know it didn't have a chance of survival on impact, then do we need to really prioritize it? Is it the admin vehicles, or is it the signage or extra training that we need to put at the top of our list? That's all I was getting at. But generically, I appreciate the explanation.
Sure. And they will say, all right, you got to come up with $300,000 out of your budget somewhere, and then they hand it back to the department. Say, all right, you determine where in your budget it needs to come from. What can you and prioritize it, just as you suggest. But we have been for the past 4 years, we have requested things along the way that were, as Chief alluded to earlier, were sort of booted to next year. Sorry, not this year. We'll consider that for next year. And this is how we've gotten ourselves in the pickle of being behind in staffing so far, as I think we are. And somewhere along the line, that line has to be maintained. What do we need? And how much longer can we wait? The whole reorganization of the department was put off 2 years, in my opinion. 2 years too many. We just can't keep postponing things if we want to maintain, a first-class operation here. But it'll be an interesting process for you to go through.
The body cameras was one of the things that was dropped the last 3 years.
Oh, God.
Our request for that, so hopefully that's behind us. Any further discussion on the budget?
You think we need to have more preparation? We did tentatively set aside I think it's next week if we need it. I'm not sure we do. But we are going to have to prepare for our presentation to the Board of Selectmen, which will take place in January. So, but if we're pleased with this budget and think this is what we really, want to submit because this is what we feel we do need, then let's go with it. And we won't need another meeting, but we will need a preparation session or two prior to our meeting with the selectmen so that we can be on board with the rationale. So
I agree with you, Mike. I think if this is what the chief wants and thinks that we need, we should go ahead and submit it at this first round and then do the negotiations as necessary.
I don't see anything that jumps off the page with me that would, get the hackles up. But then it's always a guess, as to what's happening. I believe this will be the town manager's first budget on her own. I may be wrong there.
I think you are, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of, the other ones were following up on budgets that were generated by someone else and she was administering them, but we'll see. Well, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to call the question. All in favor of sending this budget to the Board of Selectmen, say
I'd
aye.
like to be specific that we mean the budget with the additional 3 officers and not the static budget.
Right.
I just want to be
I think
specific.
that's
So
the
that,
plan. And if
Okay.
if that balloon doesn't fly, then, we're back to the other budget. But
Right.
hopefully we don't have to go through a 3-year thing to get them to increase the staff. But small town politics. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed? Hearing none, the chief, do your best.
Okay,
Submit this and take it from there.
will do. Thank you for all the efforts and guidance and review of this. Very much appreciated.
Okay. I think the last item we have on the is the body cam policy.
Let me ask a threshold question, if I may. Chief, do we have any latitude here? I mean, is this something that's mandated by post and by the Public Protection Emergency Services Department? Do we have to follow this? Is this something that's imposed upon local police departments by those agencies?
We do have to follow this, and it's not based on whether you get a grant through OPM or not. This is what we have to follow now, if and then when you have body cameras.
Okay, because I've gone through this. I don't particularly care for this myself, but that's just me. But if we don't have any say in the matter at this point, there's no sense of beating our guns to death on it. I just would prefer not having to make the statement like you do on the first page that this policy was adopted by the Simsbury Police Department. I don't know how else to word it, because we're not really voluntarily adopting it. We are implementing this policy because we have to. So if there's an easier way to say it,
Yeah.
this policy is being implemented by the Simsbury Police Department effective whatever the date is.
You could almost say that the police commission's been made aware of what the new state policy is on body cameras.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to change that to implemented, because from there below is verbatim
Right.
state policy. So, that's a real simple change. I am looking for this to be in effect once we have the cameras up and running. So it wouldn't be effective as of today. We already do have a current policy or procedure out there on the use of our current dashboard cameras. The new ones are not installed. The body cameras are not ready to be used yet. We are waiting for some technical work to be done within the police department to get those up and running. And then we have to come up with our day-to-day procedures on those about, so-and-so being issued a body camera, in X amount of hours, they have to put it back into the proper place for the footage to be downloaded, and all those sort of internal procedures. So we are expecting, within the month or so to have that put together and then up and running, and hoping for, full implementation of this in January. So what I can do at this point is we can change that to implemented. If there are any further ideas, I certainly can make those changes prior to our next meeting if you'd like.
I'd like to see it made myself. And then I don't know if there are going to be further discussions within the department chief on exactly how we are going to implement this, or well, we'll see where you go with it.
In reading it, it seemed that you had to have one for each member of the department, then you had to have a number of spares in case one of them goes down. I don't know what percentage we're talking about.
Yeah, so there is the option of, you don't need to have a camera issued to everybody, but everybody on patrol interacting with the public needs to have one. So there can be a sharing. We have opted, like in several other things, to not do that and to have the officers or the members take the individual ownership of a particular camera. So we will be issuing one to everybody. But even with that said, we need spares in case they go down. And then also, they only have a certain amount of battery life to them per shift. So if someone is going to work a 12-hour or a 16-hour shift, they will need to come in and take their issued and put it back in the docket or the docking station. And they'll need to grab one of the spares for the remainder of their shift to ensure that it's powered up and able to record.
The way I read it, if the machine the camera isn't up and running, they don't go out on patrol unless you can supply them with a spare.
Right, and we have spares. Yep.
Hey, Chief, the language about releasing the videos or others who may be able to view the video, is that pretty much boilerplate language that we've pulled from, kind of national standard type stuff? And the reason why I ask is just I'm thinking about, hey, worst case, we have a situation where we've got some, an incident that gets national level attention. Are these, the way it's written, are you comfortable with, kind of what we're doing with the footage?
So yes, the plan would be, to obviously follow any of the state retention laws on how long we have to have this, and also as far as what we can and can't release to the public. If there was something that raised to that level that you're referring to, there would be coordination with the state's attorney's office to make sure that releasing of that video would not hamper any prosecution or interfere with any prosecution. So I am comfortable with the language because that's the language, that's the law. So I don't know where they got it from. I don't know, whether it was some sort of national best practice. I don't know the origin of it, but it is verbatim.
And given some of the past cases here, is it as airtight as it should be? Does it need additional language in there to make it, not to subvert any investigations or that sort of thing, but to make it more appropriate and handled in a, in a more sensitive or delicate manner, that sort of thing.
So in our operating procedure, we would designate, who has certain levels of responsibility, who is able to redact some of the footage. So, there are some things that we can videotape and that some things that we cannot release. It may be inappropriate to release the picture of a young child who happened to be in the video. So there is redaction software that came with our purchase, and we will identify who's responsible for that redaction, and things like that, sort of tightening that up, because this is a very general policy. It doesn't talk about, anything specific to the equipment that we bought or the other equipment that other departments may have. So in that operating procedure, there will be more specifics as far as the day-to-day operations of it.
If there's an incident and the media comes in and demands the footage from the officer.
Yep.
I've noticed on some of these national things, sometimes they release it, most of the times they don't. Do you recall what this policy is
So
on?
Yeah, so the policy refers to one state law about certain footage has to be released within a certain amount of time. And it depends on what that is. Otherwise, if someone's coming in and asking for a copy of some footage of a traffic stop where there was no use of force used, there's nothing, maybe they're concerned about the interaction between the citizen and the officer, it has to be reasonable, the amount of time that it takes to release that information. And in most cases, the default is that information is public information. It can be released.
Thank you.
It's a huge question. Just one more reference for history, just for the sake of knowledge of folks who weren't a part of the process then. When our commission approved and requested funding for body cameras, I think it was 3 years ago, it was at a time when if we had a budget approved, and didn't even have to spend the money, but if we had the budget approved, we would have had a seat at the table where these regulations were drafted. The thing that you're looking at now, Travis, we could have been a part of that process, but someone on our board of finance decided that, we could push, we'll push this bumper down the road a year. And when that happened, we lost our ability to have any influence at the outset. Again, as Chairman Cosgrove referred to some things earlier as small town politics, that one bounced against us, So anyway, we're stuck with what it is for the time being. It will, I'm sure, go through an amendment process in the next year or two, but it'll be painful in some jurisdictions. Anyway, but that's what we got.
I have a high degree of confidence in the members of our force that they'll act in an action that won't cast the town in a bad light. And we'll just see how that happens. I'm confident. Let's see how my confidence works out in the long run. Okay. No other business. Michael,
Oh,
would you like to make your favorite motion?
let me see, I have the morning here somewhere. Oh, I'd like to move it this time that we adjourn the meeting.
Chief,
Yeah,
hold on.
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, if you don't mind, just a clarification. So I'll make that change and then send that back around. Is that correct? Okay. And then the second, if Mr. Chairman, if this is your last meeting,
Yes.
then I just would like to thank you on behalf of me, the command staff here, the department, and the town for your almost 30 years of commitment and dedication to the service of these members of this department and the town. We are truly grateful. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Ned.
Okay, thanks.
Hold on.
Sure.
What?
So there's a motion on the floor,
Yes.
no second.
My
If
camera.
we
just-
don't second it, then he
my
can't
camera
leave
just
us.
drooped. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Jenna.
All in favor of the motion to adjourn?
Leave it open.
All in
Sorry,
favor?
you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
All in
Aye.
favor of the motion to adjourn
Aye.
Aye.
and opposed? Thank you very much, folks. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.